I'm Doc Issues from Capes on the Couch, a show that examines the mental health issues of comic book characters, part of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other amazing geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
And welcome to Play Comics, where once again we are looking at a video game based on a comic property and how well it represents that source material. And today, once again, is pulling some real heavy duty, because not only is it the fact that we're looking at a video game and based on a comic, we are once again looking at a game that we have already looked at before, because the first time it was just me. And I kind of need to wrap my head around it and give y'all a better product for what happened, because it's X-Men. And X-Men deserves better than I gave it before. So I have two wonderful guests here. We have two former guests, two of my favorite people in the entire world, Adam Williamson and Miles Stokes. And how are y'all doing today?
Living my best life after playing this game.
Yes, I feel like we are all forever changed. But you know what? This one life we are given is all about overcoming adversity and persisting past it. So I'm feeling optimistic about that, with the camaraderie and support of my fellow, friends in the trenches here.
I think we really have to start on the happier side of things, because I really want everybody to understand here the highs of what is going on. What is it that got you, Adam, into X-Men in the first place?
So I, like many people in their 40s, was born into a world that was at the height of X-Men mania, and I had a Nintendo and I had a Blockbuster near my house. So being able to see X-Men that I talked about literally on the playground with my friends made me into a big X-Men fan. And then I devoured everything that had X-Men on it, for good or for ill.
And Miles, how about you?
I think I've been living and breathing X-Men basically my whole life. My dad was a big comics fan and got me into comics, and one of my earliest memories is him reading me an X-Men spin-off comic, X Factor number 4, I want to say. And from there I read his old comics. I got my own comics. The cartoon came out in the early 90s, and that became the best thing. I also talked about it so much on the playground. I think I mostly played Archangel when we played X-Men on the playground, because I liked his costume. And then I just kept doing that, and then started a podcast, and now I've been talking about it for like almost 12 years to the internet. So I think about X-Men a lot, like maybe too much.
I mean, the too much part is debatable, but you do talk about X-Men a lot. And I mean, it's a good thing to talk about a lot, because there's a lot of it there. X-Men, for me, I really got into it because of your podcast. Like, I had always kind of been, oh, well, you're welcome. I'd always kind of been a tangential fan. Like, I liked characters and stuff. Obviously I knew who Wolverine was. I knew who Cyclops was, the big people like that. But for me, when I started driving a delivery truck, it was the closest place was like 3 hours away, which was great because I could get in the truck and nobody would bother me. And I thought, this truck has a CD player in it, and that's it. And I don't want to have to change CDs while I'm driving this big truck full of lumber. So I got my phone and I started looking for podcasts, and I thought, let me find a comic one. And I was looking things up, and yours was one of the ones that popped up. So I started listening to it, and just way too many days of, hi, I'm going to listen to 5 episodes on the road today of Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men.
I can't imagine cramming that much of Jason my voices into your ears all in one go. I feel like the ears would start to bleed after a while.
Did you start to do the thing where you started to talk back to the podcast?
Maybe.
I did. About 3 in, you forget that there's not the other person in the car with you.
It's a really weird experience. And I mean, it's nice knowing too that there was such a easily accessible for me easily digestible in my situation way to get through these comics, because there are so many X-Men comics to read. If you were trying to read them all, man, I can't imagine how crazy that would drive somebody if they had to read every single X-Men comic that had ever been made.
I mean, my sanity perhaps is not once what it once was. I think I'm like 80% of the way through all the X-Men comics through reading them all, like even stuff we haven't covered on the show. I feel like it's only appropriate to point out that the character Flaming Carrot, who has a big carrot like over his head and torso, he's got his own comic. He lost his mind after reading every comic book ever, so beware. Like X-Men is only some of the comic books ever, but still down that path lies eventually Flaming Carrotdom.
What is it about X-Men, do you think, that just keeps them in the forefront and being so important, not just to Marvel, but also the fans and everything as well, all these years later?
That is an excellent question. I mean, part of it is just that they're cool superheroes and they have neat designs and neat personalities, and it's a soap opera, and that's great. But part of it, I think, of course, is the mutant metaphor, the idea that you have this oppressed group, who, through no fault of their own, society doesn't treat well, and they decide nonetheless they are going to be heroes, and they are also going to be a found family, because often they don't really have their own support systems because they are in this oppressed minority. And so it's not so much a power fantasy as like a belonging fantasy, and also very politically relevant to a lot of people, whether it's because, society treats those actual people poorly due to skin color or sexuality or whatever, or just because they feel like they don't quite fit, which most people feel, at some point in their lives. And so, yeah, there's that point of identification, in addition to it just being a really fun, incredibly overly complicated story about like time travel and clones and that sort of thing.
I definitely think, especially in the earlier days, and it's weird to think like up through the 90s as being the earlier days when these really felt like they were more targeted towards teenagers
Mhm.
than anything else. Like X-Men hits you right at that spot where you can really identify with the idea that there's something about you that's different, and being able to see people who are different form their own culture, their own world, their own way to protect themselves is something I think almost everybody can identify with. And then as you get older, you can really start to, like you said, get into the mutant metaphor where it works, where it notoriously does not work. But it does help you to make connections with these characters that it's really hard to make with, like, I don't know, Iron Man. I don't know what it's like to be, a billionaire, genius, playboy, philanthropist. I do know what it's like to be a weird teenager.
Yeah, well said. Well said. And especially when you get those superpowers that kind of become representative of like not just the characters being able to shoot force beams out of their eyes or whatever, but through personality traits that you can identify with. Like I feel like everyone's got an X-Man or two where they're like, oh, I get that. And if my insecurities or whatever challenges I have were to manifest, they would manifest as this cool superpower. It's like I think that's one of the most powerful things about superhero comics is like you externalize symbolism, you concretize like something that is merely a symbol into something that is like a physical part of the world.
And one of the things that's always hit me well too is not only do you have the struggle between the mutants and the, for lack of a better way to say it, normal humans, you also have a struggle between the mutants that like could pass for normal humans and can survive out in the world as long as they don't just go blatantly using their powers, and the ones that there's no way you're going to look at them and think that they are not a mutant.
hmm And like, and even then, you also have like the distinction within the folks who can't pass of those who choose to kind of be in the world anyway to an extent, or at least, on the X-Men in the surface world, like say Nightcrawler or whoever, and the ones that don't, like the Morlocks that live underneath New York, like in hiding.
I think that's why I always really adored Beast, and I'm sure that has nothing to do with the fact that I had like a full mustache when I was 11. But like, I love this idea of this big, hairy, brutish guy being mostly part of the world and known for his intelligence. Like X-Men pushing this message that you can be more than just what you appear to be on the outside. That as a teenager, that's a really nice message to get. It's nice as an adult, to be honest.
hmm Yeah, Beast even being like on the Avengers for a while and like
Hmm.
deciding that even though some people would not accept him, he was just gonna be out there and smile and like kill them with kindness, kind of like not that that's the right answer, but just having that as one of the available options to think about as a reader of the comics.
As X-Men has gone on, do you think it's really held on to this mutant metaphor? We're going to make sure that people are included and fight to keep them that way mission?
I mean, I think about the recently ended Krakoan era, where for like a number of years, mutants had their own nation, essentially. And it was kind of a separatist nation. Like you could only get to it through these teleporters around the world if you yourself were a mutant. And so it's I like that X-Men continues to address exactly that question. Do we protect a world that hates and fears us? Do we take care of ourselves? Do we take care of our people? Do we do some balance between the two? And so, like, during the Krakoan era, I think a lot of people were upset because the previous coexistence philosophy was not part of the line at that point as much. But I like that we were exploring kind of different versions of that we were exploring versions that were a little less traditionally heroic. I mean, there's always going to be the reversion to the mean in comics. Like, you always go back to the status quo. It's always going to go back to basically 1991 and X-Men after a while. And so we're starting to see more of that traditional, coexistence, Professor Xavier's dream of that coexistence again. But I appreciate that it's not always just that. It's not always just Xavier wants coexistence, Magneto wants domination of the humans to protect the mutants. Like you get to see more and more angles as time goes on. So in that regard, I think the X-Men line definitely continues to be successful, even if, not every run is as successful as every other run.
That's something I've actually adored about Gail Simone's current run
Oh yeah.
in Uncanny. It's not even just coexistence. Like, what do you mean we've always been here? And I've loved kind of putting that and then really going all the way hard on found family. I mean, so I'm the father of adoptive kids, and like that is my favorite book. That is the most realistic depiction of kind of that found family I've ever seen. And expanding it out into the world of, they've always been there, they've always been a part of us, and there's still parts that you share, parts that you don't, has been really cool to read.
Yeah, that is such a strong book in the current line. I think you nailed it too, like as to why. And I think one of the things that book does super well is it doesn't just have categories of people. Like it's all about those individuals. You see individual relationships between all of the human and mutant characters in the book. Like every pair of characters has like a way they interact, and that I think is where it stops just being kind of a general metaphor and starts being like something you can recognize in your own life, in the world around you specifically, like microcosmically.
And I think if you to kind of even almost answer the question, the cool thing about the runs being so different over the course of the last more years than I'm comfortable than saying out loud is when you take them all together, you really do get that view of all the different ways you can look at what it means to be a community, to be an outsider, integration, separation. It's all there, just like in real life.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think that's one of the cool things about looking at a group like this is marginalized groups, I think, do need a place where they can go and be in their safe environment and, discuss the things that they need to discuss to go in there. And I say that as a straight white guy. So, like, I mean, that's me not being a part of the group, which is why I say they like that. But, when you go in there, your society around you is your society around you. You can't control that. So everybody needs to like not be a giant asshole. I think that's the nicest way I can say it right now because I am trying to keep this PG-13-ish. But just the general don't be an asshole to people. If people would just do that more, then that takes away a nice amount of the world's conflict.
Oh, for real. And I mean, to extend it further, if people read X-Men more and develop that level of empathy, that level of, these people are not don't have the same qualities I do, but perhaps I couldn't be a dick to them because they're people too. And then maybe they won't be a dick to me. And maybe we can all just, get along and coexist and appreciate those differences and not build giant robots to kill everybody.
The problem, I think, is too many people read this and see what the X-Men villains are doing as a playbook instead of a warning. And it bothers me so much because there's so many things in there that I can see either this was obviously pulled from real life or this might have been written as an exaggeration 10, 15, 20 years ago, and now it is actually happening in real life.
Mhm.
Like, ugh, that's all I can say is just noise.
It's really weird to be in a world where, like, the only thing that stops us from having sentinels is just scalable power sources.
Yeah, it's. I feel like X-Men is at its most powerful when it's most relevant, and also the world is at its most disappointing when X-Men is at its most relevant. But I'm grateful for the lack of the of ability to build more Sentinels and or Nimrods and or et cetera. Is I'm grateful that that's not a thing right now. But as for the future, well, we'll find out. Maybe there will be, giant purple robots that look like they have toboggan hats on for some reason and talk in really flat voices.
Yes, but now we all know that we just tell them to go fight the sun.
Yes, that's right. I mean, I don't know. I'm no AI expert. I'm a bit of an AI doomer, so I haven't really looked into it too much. But I'm pretty sure if AI gets out of hand, we tell it to fight the sun, just like Cyclops did to the Sentinels that one time.
Well, we're going to go break into all the AI code and see how we can tell it to have its most important instruction be fly into the sun, as I drop some promos for a few other things.
I'm not convinced that's already it.
Hey there, Hellspawn. Is your regular podcast rotation missing a show that dives deep into the gritty darkness of one of the greatest superhero creations of the 90s? Well, we've got a show for you. I'm Pierce Leiden with
George Marston.
And this is Spawnography. We're two longtime comic book journalists who are ready to take you from the alleys of New York City to the depths of hell itself as we dissect each arc of Spawn, unraveling its mysteries and celebrating its legacy along the way. New episodes drop every Monday wherever you get your podcasts, because
For Todd so loved the world.
He gave his only to Cotton Spawn.
Hello, I'm Anthony,
And I'm Dr. Issues.
and we're the hosts of Capes on the Couch, the podcast where comics get counseling.
Superheroes don't always get to go home happy. That's where we come in.
We offer psychiatric and mental health evaluation of comic book characters.
We also chat with some of your favorite creators
Al Ewing.
Erica Schultz,
Gail Simone,
Philip Kennedy Johnson,
Chris Claremont.
about their work on comics.
So check out all our episodes at capesonthecouch.com and follow us at Capes on the Couch on Facebook and Instagram. Hashtag because comics.
Those are some great things to check out, but first let's finish up here. So what's bringing us together here is this 1989 game, Uncanny X-Men, for the regular Nintendo, the NES, however you want to say it. We know for sure it was published by LJN. It might have been developed by Pixel. It might have been developed by Both Tech. It might have been developed by some third party that is a giant mystery. Nobody knows, because every single source that I have found has said either we don't know or it might have been one of those two. I wonder why nobody wants to take credit.
It was me. I developed this game. I was 6 years old and I did it anyway.
I would actually believe that.
I feel like a 6-year-old would have done better.
That's probably true.
So as far as anybody needs to care, the plot for this game is Magneto's being a bad guy. Get your X-Men friends and go make him stop being a bad guy.
Magneto and his buds, some of whom are visually identifiable and some of whom aren't, who are all in like different places you can go, that you have to go before you get to Magneto for reasons that are way more complicated than I was expecting. Well, I'm sure we'll get to that.
I do want to give a little bit of Play Comics lore to why we're looking at this one again. Way back in 2017, there was a little podcast called Play Comics that was starting, and I knew that I probably would want to get other people on to talk about these things with me. And I had found this podcast called Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men, which at that point had not fully exploded to the extent that it has now. And I sent them an email, and I don't want to look it up because I don't want to have that existential crisis of reading the horrible email that I wrote. But in that email was the sentence that was essentially, unfortunately, Uncanny X-Men is on the table. Do you want to come talk about that? Leaving it completely ambiguous about whether the unfortunately was referring to this NES game or Uncanny X-Men just as a concept of X-Men. And they never answered because it was 2017 and nobody answered emails back then.
We were talking about this before we started recording today, and I innocently asked, like, wait, you've covered this again, right? And this came up, and I was so embarrassed because I didn't remember this. And I looked in my inbox. I searched through it as we were just talking. And sure enough, there was that email, and it was marked as read. And I had no recollection of it. I don't know how that happened. The email, by the way, actually came off just great. So you did fine. But like Yeah, here we are now, years and years and years later, and I can finally atone for having somehow missed that email completely, despite either myself or my co-host having opened it at one point.
I mean, you've also both been on the show since then, so you atoned for it a long time ago.
Well, I suppose, but this is like the original sin of the Play Comics, Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men experience that we are finally remedying today, and I'm very excited.
Me too, because when I looked at this the first time, it was just me doing it. This was like episode 9, if my numbering is correct on everything, because it's so old that I wasn't putting episode numbers on the episode art yet. Now we can properly look at this game. That's not just me saying thoughts for 10 minutes and being done. So I think the biggest thing I have to say to both of you is really 2 things. Number 1, I'm sorry. And number 2, why did we do this to ourselves?
So, Adam, I don't know if you had the same experience when you played this before, but I remembered it being bad, but I don't think I was prepared for how bad it was. So I thought it wasn't going to be quite the struggle going into it this time.
Okay, so in all honesty, and this is showing my age, the first time I played this game, I played it on a black and white television because, like many in the 80s, my family did not have more than one regular TV. So the Nintendo was hooked up to the black and white TV. And I swear I thought that's why I had such a hard time playing it. And I was wrong.
Wow. Yeah, it's I mean there were a lot of NES games that were questionable back in the day. A lot of them were, based on existing IPs, as has come up on this show many times. But like even among those, I feel like even in the late 80s, it was clear that like this one was different. This one was like maybe, I don't know about trying less hard, perhaps succeeding less than many.
Essentially, this one is like an Akari Warrior style isometric kind of, because you're always going from the bottom to the top, run and gun shooter where half of your characters can only punch.
Mhm.
And punching is a generous term. I think nudging.
Yes, and you have to, of course, nudge exactly correctly, or else you are the one that is nudged. It's the hitboxes are very unforgiving and unpredictable.
One thing that does make sense is the characters in here, because you're getting characters that were in that Pride of the X-Men cartoon. So you have some normal amounts of picking in there, and just knowing what X-Men were big at the time, you can't really argue with anybody. Obviously, you have Wolverine, because how do you have an X-Men game without Wolverine? You've got Colossus, Storm, Iceman, Nightcrawler, and Cyclops to go in there. That's an obvious tipping of the scales on the gender balance of the team, especially considering that you have such big female characters in X-Men that you could have had on there. But I can't really argue with any of the characters that they did include either.
Yeah, it's interesting to me the link to the Pride of the X-Men cartoon pilot, because like Dazzler is right there, and Iceman I don't believe was in the cartoon pilot. So like you could have easily had the second female character. Like I know the X-Men arcade game did have Dazzler, for instance, and she was cool as hell. In this though, maybe she dodged a bullet.
It's really interesting to see how they did not decide to play around with the powers at all. Like if you remember the really awesome X-Men arcade game that you were just talking about, everybody had kind of like their ranged special attack, even if it didn't make sense. That doesn't exist in this top-down shooter.
Yeah, like you basically have zappy or not zappy, and those are your options. And like some of the characters, so okay, each character has their attack, and they also have their, I guess, movement ability, for lack of a better way of putting it, that uses the other button on the controller. And like attack is basically shoot or punch, or sorry, shoot or nudge, as we established. But like, you look at a character like Iceman, and he's got his shooting, but he also sort of slides around, which is the same as Storm flying around, in that they just go a little faster, which mainly lets them get hit by more projectiles more efficiently, I guess. Like the powers, they try to sort of differentiate themselves, but they don't really. Like Wolverine, I mean, he punches. I assume he has claws. You can't really tell. He punches, or he can jump straight up. He can like do this little hop. Did you guys find any utility to the
No.
hop that those characters have? Yeah.
No.
I think its main purpose was to look so much like the nudge that it confused me.
That sounds right.
I'm sure it will shock everyone to know that I did not play this game with an official NES controller, and it did take me a while to figure out that the hop was not another attack.
Mm-hmm. It's just a way to freeze yourself in place for a moment and thus get hit by more projectiles. Nightcrawler does have his special teleportation ability, which, is useful at times if you can get it to work right. It's kind of a movement ability. I never quite figured out how to trigger it deliberately. I think I teleported into a wall and died at one point, or that might have just been one of the many times when my character would seem to die for no reason.
They do that an awful lot for being superheroes in this game, don't they?
Sometimes because of the most dreaded obstacle of all. In a world that hates and fears mutants, there are giant robots, there are bigoted soldiers, there are the various microaggressions of society, there's legislation, and then there are doors. Doors are by far the most dangerous things, because if you are not invincible when you go through a door and you time it poorly, you are just dead.
And sometimes it will kill you, but not the computer player, or the other way around, even if you entered it at the same time doing the same thing.
I mean, the world is a terrifying place. I think the game gets that across quite well. So you mentioned the computer player. So I started playing this game on my own, and it was a little rough. So I had my good friend Tony over, and we tried to play it together. We did do a 2-player mode. I was hoping that would make it better. It doesn't. It also doesn't make the character randomly dying, despite having taken very little damage, problem any better. So we spent a lot of our gameplay with one of us dying within seconds in a level, and then watching the other person get lost until they eventually died.
I actually was watching some reviews just to try to cram before getting in here. And one of the things I saw somebody saying was to pick a shooty character and a not shooty character and just hang out until the not shooty character dies. And then just go on from there, because the computer characters are so horrible with this anyway.
Yeah, I will say I've mentioned I'm sort of an AI doomer. I'm not a fan overall, but you can look at the late 80s Uncanny X-Men NES game, and it certainly does tell us that AI has come a long way since that time.
Yeah, the only thing I'm really giving this game credit for is that it had an AI-controlled character in 1989. It's actually, I was going to say it's kind of impressive. It's not impressive at all, but man, is it weird to see that the same year that like Zero Wing came out.
Yeah. Oh, that was the same year, was it? Huh.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want it to really blow your mind, I think this is the same year that Mario 3 came out too, over in Japan anyway.
Oh boy, Mario 3, this is not.
No, I did a little looking around to kind of like put myself in the right headspace of what else came out this year. This is a bad game for 1989. Like, there is some amazing stuff that came out. Even the Ninja Turtles NES game is better than this.
Yeah, honestly, I would say if you take the water level out of the Ninja Turtles game, it's a pretty okay game.
It is.
Yeah, but all the levels, I mean, okay, so what did we think about the levels? Because we do have different levels. You can do them in any order, like it's Mega Man. They look different. Did any of you guys have a favorite level or a least favorite level?
My favorite and least favorite level was Battle Through a Living Starship, because I swore I thought there would be something broody about it. And instead, this is the most PG-13 way I can say this. I think I died to a giant butthole over and over again.
Yes, I had that in my notes as well. There are just buttholes in the floor that sort of open and close, and honestly, it's some of the better animation in the game, but
Yeah.
also, okay. I assumed, because like you, I assumed it was a Brood thing, right? Like the living starship, the Brood in the comics are aliens that go around and basically like big space whales they've taken over that they use their bodies as starships. So I thought it was supposed to be one of those, but I mean, I'm not saying space whales and earth whales are the same, but this space whale has like way more buttholes than I would expect from any sort of whale.
I did really appreciate that almost all the levels seemed like they were actually things from X-Men, with the like identifying information completely filed off. Like, we have a Future City street fight. I guess that's kind of Days of Future Past. And the subterranean confrontation is kind of the Morlock tunnels. Why not?
Escape from a robo factory. Okay, a lot of robots and X-Men, Sentinels presumably. But yeah, the details really are filed off, because like subterranean confrontation, the Morlock tunnels. I've read a lot of Morlock stories. I don't remember those Morlock stories having tunnels full of skeletons with swords and shields, or like toothy mouths in the ground that keep opening and closing, or giant mice that actually look kind of like spiders. I think that was my favorite level, just because it went so wacky with the spooky imagery, in a way that was was only vaguely X-Men related.
It was. That one was almost like they decided, like, I think kids like that Ghost and Goblins game. Let's throw some of these guys in.
Exactly.
We might have been at Castlevania's by this point.
And how do you tie it into X-Men with all of that? Inferno.
And
It is always Inferno, so I accept this. Yes. I know that like each level has a boss too. I didn't make it to the end of that level. I only found one boss because this game is very hard. Did either of you guys see who the bosses were for these various levels? Like I know Juggernaut's at the end of the Robo Factory where he shoots lightning at you for reasons I don't understand, but I don't know about the rest.
apparently White Queen is in this, so I didn't know Emma Frost was going to make an appearance. I had to go watch that because, again, I mostly died to doors and walls.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that there's bosses in this game blew my mind.
Yeah. Like I think it seems like you defeat a boss, you get some sort of item the boss drops, and then you have to escape the levels. And like that's no mean feat because these levels, mazes perhaps is too generous a term. They're just a bunch of variously tall scrollable rooms with teleporters in them, and sometimes the teleporters are orifices in the ground. Sometimes they're staircases, but regardless. And so you just sort of like learn to memorize which stairways connect to which other rooms, or you attempt to, because many of the rooms look very, very similar. So when you're panicking with a countdown, trying to get back to the start, having just defeated this boss, having somehow made it through past all of the doors and buttholes, like that's so stressful. I can only imagine. I can literally only imagine because I didn't get that far.
I got to exactly 0 bosses because I am a horrible gamer and completely sucked at this and gave up. But, again, watching levels and playthroughs and everything, because I know that I'm a horrible gamer and I needed to check on everything, just the whole get in, do the thing, get back out aspect really, really sucks when the doors close on the way out and you can't get through because the door doesn't open again.
Mm-hmm.
What's the point of the timer being that long if you're going to get soft locked in before the timer runs out?
Yeah, it is an unforgiving game, and only somewhat deliberately. And also, the enemies are like still spawning. Can we talk about the enemies? Can we talk about whether any of them are clear as to what the hell they're supposed to be?
No, they're not at all.
What, you don't remember the iconic X-Men villain, Random Tank?
Yup.
Well, I remember 3 balls.
3 balls. Man, that really does symbolize humanity's intolerance for mutancy right there.
I wonder if he's related to Forearm.
Yes, exactly. I think my favorite enemy is probably one of the least X-related even, but in the, was it the Robo Factory? I think it was. Like, they're these sort of spring snakes that just look like they're straight out of Q*bert, and that just made me smile, and it was so nice to smile in this game.
So that is why I'm convinced this game started its life as something else as the enemies, because they're just so generic that this feels like one of those. I'm going to find out someday that this was based on an obscure anime in Japan and everything is going to click into place.
That would make so much sense. And like I feel like there are little clues to this theory. Like in the Robo Factory, you would expect to see Sentinels, right? Like the robots that are in X-Men. But no, like there are robot parts everywhere, but they're different robots. And the robots that like I don't think are even close to anything in X-Men. So maybe they are from this theoretical anime. Maybe that's our clue for tracking down the source of this, for finding someone to blame.
Doing a little research on this game, I also found out that one of the bosses in this is Boomerang.
Wait, what?
Yeah, the Spider-Man bad guy.
I mean, okay, he was really fun in that one Superior Foes of Spider-Man story decades later, but like Boomerang, of all the characters, I mean, okay, the Boomerang is a classic video game weapon, so all right, but working for Magneto, huh? I guess he's a mercenary. Maybe Magneto hired him, paid him in like, iron filings or something.
I was wondering, like, is this close to when the Outback era was? It's like, he's Australian, it's a Boomerang, clearly. This is X-Men.
I mean, actually it kind of was close to that era. So I'm going to say, yes, that's what's happening.
Your no prize is in the mail.
Yes.
And looking through like one of the only walkthroughs I could find on the ancient texts of game facts, it talks about the boss of the level. That's it. No name of who they are or anything, just the boss.
I think I was looking at the same fact, attempting to find my way through the mazes, and yeah, that was that made me so sad. I wanted to see the bosses. I wanted to see not just Juggernaut with his lasers that he shoots at you for some reason. Like, who are they? There was some reference to when you fight the White Queen, her turning into the character you're playing, which makes me think like, did they conflate the White Queen and Mystique or something with the shapeshifting?
They could have. I bet you can never guess who the other boss is, though, besides Magneto that we haven't talked about.
Oh.
Okay, so we have Magneto, we have Juggernaut, we have Emma/Mystique, we have Boomerang for some reason. I mean, like, standard prominent ex bosses at the time. I mean, you could have like you could have Apocalypse. He was around then. You could have the Brotherhood, like the Blob or the Toad or Mastermind. But I bet it's none of them, is it?
Nope.
No, not at all. It's
I-
Sabretooth.
okay.
Which is a good
fair.
pick. It is a good pick, but how are you supposed to guess that from seeing it in the game?
Yeah, you can barely tell which X-Man is which. I mean, like, if you look at the color scheme, that's about all you have going for it. So this is like, orange outfit Sabretooth, who I assume being Sabretooth just nudges you, or does he also randomly have, like, projectiles like the Juggernaut does? Or do we know?
I'm sure somebody does. I don't.
I could not find a playthrough that got to Sabretooth because I desperately wanted to figure out what they were going to do with him and nothing.
I feel like this is some kind of a holy calling to fill this gap in pop culture documentation, but I don't think I'm up for that. Either you guys up for that?
I think you've done enough heavy lifting for pop culture documentation.
Well, thanks. Off the hook, huh?
If I can do it without having to play the game again, then yeah, I'm all for it because that side of things I really love.
I mean, I could assign this to my students as a research project.
Abusing authority right there. I feel like this
Yes.
is a game that was just sort of made for a Game Genie, though. Like, with a Game Genie, this might be okay. If you could just find a way to not randomly get killed by doors or just the whim of the game, then it wouldn't be as bad. Like, there are walkthroughs out there, like the one we were talking about, that at least tell you vaguely where to go. Like, there are maps on Game Facts. If you just didn't die all the time, you could, see what Sabretooth looked like.
I almost feel so. One thing this actually reminded me of is when you had a Game Genie or a later Game Shark and it messed up and it would make your game do weird things. It's like that's always happening in this game.
Oh, that's so true. I mean, it could be that the X-Men are just in the danger room the whole time, and they tried to use a Game Genie on the danger room itself, and that's what explains all of this, like literally all of this.
I love that they name the obvious danger room level practice.
Yes, they could call it the danger room. And it's weird because, like, the character bios are clearly pretty well researched. Like, someone was paying attention to at least some part of this game, even if it does say that Storm can shoot lightning out of her head, which is a really weird way to phrase that.
It makes you wonder if there was some intern on the team. I assume in the 80s they had intern. They were probably paid and had their own houses, but there was some intern that like was really into X-Men and really tried, and that was the one person.
I want to talk to that person. I want to track down that person and just shake their hand and buy them many, many drinks because I'm sure that they've been living with the trauma of having been, complicit in releasing this game into the world. And actually, speaking of people I want to talk to understand how things happened, you guys, I suspect in your research, also uncovered how you get to the last level, right?
Yes.
I don't believe it. It's what is it with X-Men games and wanting to do weird things to continue the game?
Right. I mean, you were thinking of the X-Men Genesis game as well, where the game vaguely implies you have to reset the computer, and it means you have to reset your Sega Genesis console like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly.
And even the arcade game, it fakes you out with the first Magneto fight.
Oh, that's true. Okay, so deception is inherent to X-Men games, is what I'm getting here.
I think
This
so.
one is like weird even for X-Men, though.
I love the fact that it seems, reading between the lines, that they put the secret ending in. And I guess for anybody who's listening who doesn't know what we're talking about and why on earth would you have to put in a special code to get to the actual boss of this game. And they forgot to put that in the game.
Oh, Actually, I think it's sort of from what I was reading. I didn't get to this at all, but from what I was reading, if you kill enough special enemies in each level, and you can only occasionally tell which ones are the special ones, then the text at the end of the level that like tells you, you've beaten so and so, and it's phrased really weirdly. Some of the words will be in red, and if you do this in all the levels and combine all the red words, it gives you like a phrase that you can then combine with the game's like sticker, the sticker on the cartridge.
Yes.
Yeah. And so then I guess that unlocks the last level when you like hold down all the buttons between the secret message in the game and the message on the sticker.
And the best part, of course, is that this is on a NES cartridge, which goes inside the system.
Yeah. This, I can only attribute malice at this point. Like, I was talking to my friend that I was playing this with. We were as we were slowly losing our minds playing this game, and so we were trying to think of whether like this is sort of a meta commentary on the way X-Men works, or if perhaps it was trying to tell us something. If perhaps, like so often happens in comics, you have like a bad guy that tries to, go into the past to mess with the future. Then you have heroes to try to go into the past to like undo that part. It's just this battle for the timeline. So like, did someone go back in time to make this decision, to make this game that was already such an ordeal, like damn near impossible to actually get through? Is this like what led to the frustration that led so many of our current public figures to do the evil deeds they have done to get us into our own dark timeline, our own Days of Future Past we live in right now? Like, will someone be sent back in time? Perhaps the person who had done all that research to get all the X-Men's bios right, even if nothing else was right, to try to like stop this? To do their best to fix time by undoing the way you have to use the secret code in 1989's Uncanny X-Men NES game? Like, is that the way the story goes? Because I feel like I'm going to feel a lot better about all of us having played through this if we can be a part of such a grand cross-time tale. I can only hope that's the case.
I just assumed it was Mojo.
Yeah, Mojo would totally do that. Yeah, like Crunch Conundrum era Mojo. Speaking of the X-Men Genesis game, it all comes together. That was the level you had to reset your Genesis for.
Yep.
One thing I want to say too, though, is that this is also from an era where the instruction manuals actually mattered.
Yes.
So having these ambiguous things in the game is not that big a deal, because not only were you getting an instruction manual that actually showed up with your game, a lot of times if you rented the game, you would get printed off versions of the instruction manuals, which is a lot of why Nintendo was going against having things in rental markets and everything, and copyright lawsuits and all that fun stuff. That's really a discussion for another time. But I found the instruction manual online, and I'm looking through all this thing to see if it says anything about that secret code. I didn't find anything.
Yeah, okay. I mean, there was also the other way of knowing how to play games, which was talking to kids on the playground about it. And like for every 5 things you heard, one of them would be true. So perhaps, this bit of lore of how to make it work would be on the playground, along with I have an uncle who worked on this game, and he's in it if you, die 6 times in this level in a row in a certain way or whatever.
The best part is that the smart kid who figured out everyone was lying is the kid who would miss out how to get through this game.
That's the thing. You have to take all the bad with the good. Yeah. I don't know though. I mean, I was such a big X-Men fan. I didn't know anybody who played this game enough to have opinions about it. I think everybody I knew just bounced off it almost immediately, having rented it and possibly its printed out instruction manual from, Blockbuster or whatever.
Yeah, this was the epitome of a weekend Blockbuster game.
Mhm.
Like you got it on Friday, you brought it back on Monday, and I don't think you even talked about it with your friends.
No, it was just too shameful of a topic. It would just take everyone to too dark a place.
This to me was why I really got into emulation. Grab this game, try it out, and then because it's so bad, you don't waste time at whatever your local flavor of GameStop is trying to find it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. This was, I think, when I first started playing around with the emulators, this was one of the first games I tried out because I did want to see it in color.
Right.
And it's wild that nobody has ever done some kind of like rebuild or fixing of this like they've done with so many other games, which tells me that just from the ground up, there's not broken things in here. Everything's, and it was a decision.
again, I have to almost attribute malice. My 2-player friend's theory was that maybe the game was just done this way to deliberately get kids to get mad and break their controllers or consoles and have to buy new ones, and that was just Nintendo trying to make more money. Like, there's something behind this. Like, every step of the way, someone was like, "Yep, that's a good decision. Let's continue on from there."
Made by a late 80s Teen Titans fan. Unhappy.
It was just sabotage of the X line. It was like when Marvel didn't have the rights to X-Men in the movies, and so they kept trying to push the Inhumans and not have as many X books.
Oh my god. Yes, exactly. Well, this is 2 years after Marvel had gotten bought out by a private equity firm. So I guess this might be enshittification in real time.
1989 8-bit enshittification.
So as we start to wrap everything up here, I'm seriously asking you this. What do you think this game gets right looking at X-Men?
It has a team. The fact that there is no true solo mode in this does feel right. The X-Men, who are not named Wolverine, don't do a lot of solo stuff, and I love the fact that you are on a team no matter what.
Agreed. Yeah, and I like that there are circumstances where different characters maybe are a little more effective, even if the ranged ones are always better. Like, it does sort of get across that, we all use our strengths together. I like that the different levels are extremely varied in tone and setting. That's a very X-Men thing. Like, X-Men is a book about, oppression of minorities, but it's also a book about space and robots and underground tunnels. And so it gets all of that. It's got some nice variation in there, including buttholes in the ground, which I'm sure it's in some issue or another. I haven't read them all.
Oh, and to draw from a long-running joke on your podcast, the X-Men are bad at using doors.
They are. That's so true. That's why they always break through walls, because they've learned that doors are just like instant death. They don't want to fuck with that.
The biggest thing for me, and this has been true for a few other games, but if for an entirely different reason here, because it's like the only good thing, the art in the instruction manual is really good. I mean, you've got characters that definitely look like the characters they're supposed to be. There's no question about who anybody is. You've got Mohawk Storm, which is, if not the best Storm, top 2. And I don't know who the other one would be. And they don't just have the same character talking throughout the entire thing. So there's the team aspect in there too. Everything in the instruction manual is great. And it explains what most of the things are, except for how to get to the last level.
The ultimate mystery. Yeah, and the character portraits and such, I think that's extends from the instruction manual, like pretty high quality. The details about the characters, the fact that Wolverine is 5'3" and 195 pounds because he's full of metal, like, yeah, they got a lot of that right. Which, given that that's one of the first things you see in the game is those character portraits, there's perhaps some optimism when the game starts. It ends up not being founded, but strong start. I like that.
But what do you think this game really gets wrong outside of gameplay elements about the X-Men?
Oh boy, where to start?
Boy. Perhaps the fact that while there is some differentiation of powers, it's not enough. Like, Cyclops, Iceman, and Storm are 3 incredibly different characters, and they're all basically just the pew-pew character in this.
Yeah. And similarly, Wolverine and Colossus, they're kind of the same. Maybe like different stats to an extent. Yeah, I would like to see situations where the character's powers are like necessary to get through, and not just because sometimes you want to teleport past a thing because otherwise you're going to get soft locked. I would like to see that interdependence. I'm not talking like mutant circuits necessarily, Krakoan style, but an area where it's not just shooty character A versus shooty character B, and they're kind of the equivalent of one another.
I know this is a big ask for a game in 1989, but I would have loved to see anything like that was close to a plot. Because, for me, at least, the X-Men always tend to do things for a reason. And there was nothing like a reason in this.
Yeah, the reason just seems to be, Magneto bad, fight Magneto, but first do some other stuff to get the secret code. And even just a little bit, I'm not even saying big old Ninja Gaiden style cutscenes, although that would have been amazing, but even just a little bit of dialogue. The characters could say a thing, or even Professor X could just say a thing. The only text we really get in the game are those end-of-level messages, I believe, which are kind of incoherent. So yeah, tap into what makes X-Men X-Men, the variation of the characters, the story around it, the characters' personalities, not just walking upward into teleporters until you find a key after you fight the 3-ball monster.
I would have paid for a floating Professor X head anywhere.
Especially if you could.
And here's the thing with stories on this one is it's so hard and so bad to be able to pull it off in the game that nobody would have expected that if you had just had the story in the instruction manual, or even if all you could do was text on the screen to get a bit of a story going, that would have made us ecstatic. But instead, we have this game that came out, and again, Mario Brothers 3 is already out when this comes out. You can make really good things on the regular Nintendo.
Yeah, 1989 is far enough along in the original Nintendo's life cycle that they're making really good games that stand up to being played right now. And this is not one of those.
Yeah, and even if it had just had those little bits of X story, at least then it would be, an interesting X artifact of how the concept was interpreted. But as it is, it's just a very, very rough game with a slight X-Men coat of paint on it. And some excellent character portraits and bios at the very beginning.
If you had somebody who wanted to get into X-Men, would you give them this game as part of a primer course?
No.
No, in fact, I would do everything I could to hide from them the knowledge that this game exists. This is an anti-X-Men game.
There is one very, very specific circumstance where I would give somebody this game. And that circumstance is if they wanted me to give them a really, really quick explanation of Inferno.
Yup. It was kind of like that Subterranean level. Just, better.
This game is a wonderful thing that I think everybody has to experience, but only once.
Yeah, you check that box, and then you can forever be secure in your knowledge that as rough as the world may get, you're done with 1989 Uncanny X-Men for the NES.
And every X-Men game you play after this will be so much better.
Now I want to play that one PlayStation 3 one right after.
Oh, yeah, it's still better.
I haven't played it yet. I own it. I'm waiting for it on purpose. It has to be better.
I suspect so. Or at least interesting. Like, I don't mind a bad game if it's interesting. And this one, the occasional butthole aside, perhaps did not pass that test.
You know what? The PS3 one, I'm assuming you mean the weird one that you cannot legally buy anymore. It's not good, but it's certainly an X-Men video game.
I respect it when, the effort is put in. And also, I just like seeing my mutant friends on a screen. Even with this, there was a slight thrill to seeing, I'm pretty sure that's Colossus.
Yeah, I deeply enjoyed it, just seeing them. Nothing else, but that I liked.
Did you make your kids experience this with you?
Okay, I'm going to be honest. I thought about it. I'm like, I clearly need a second player. Let me go get one of the kids to come in here, and I couldn't do that to them.
You're a good parent.
That is a hell of a grenade to jump on for them.
But if you want to actually play something with X-Men in it that's a little bit of fun right now, Marvel Cosmic Invasion. You can play a very 90s Wolverine.
I am so excited. That is on my wish list. I think the first time it goes on sale, it looks great.
It is silly fun.
Well, speaking of silly fun, let's just finish scraping all the X-Men stuff off of this. Just make it a whole different game. What Muppets are you going to make be playable characters in this one?
Oh, that's a fine question. I mean, okay, you have to have Animal. He's just a perfect fit for this, I think, in terms of running forward with little regard for details. I want to see Gonzo shooting lasers and sliding around for no reason. Do we get an explanation? No, we absolutely don't.
It's Gonzo. That's all the explanation you need.
So everybody's dumb. Everybody dies for no reason and are barely controllable. I think it's just Camilla and the chickens.
Yeah, okay. And even some of whom are shooters and some of whom are nudgers, just the various chickens?
Yeah, just various chickens.
Oh, that means we can have the Swedish Chef be one of the villains then.
Yes. Ooh. It could also be really dark and it's a Fraggles game.
Oh, geez, that would be. I think we're constructing a better game here. I think we've been too hard on this game because we've been trying to make it an X-Men game, and when in reality it just needed to be a Henson-verse game.
I'd play it.
I would too.
Yes.
Well, it has been great having you both on here. Adam, if people want to hear more from you, where else can they find you around the internet?
You can find me at Effect, not Affect on Blue Sky, and that's it for the moment.
And Miles, how about you?
I am half of the podcast Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men. That is X-PLAIN, because you have to have X-Men wordplay in your X-Men podcast title. It's legally required. Yeah, if you want to hear me talk about X-Men along with my co-host Jay, then we have hundreds of hours of that just waiting for you, whether you're, driving or whatever.
It's a really good time. You should do it.
Oh, thanks.
And like always, we'll have links to all that stuff down in the show notes because clicking links is so much easier than trying to remember how to spell things. As for me, the best place you can find me is over on playcomics.com, where you can find links to all the social media things, which is basically Blue Sky and Twitter because they're fun and I have found cool people to interact with. And they interact with me and I like them and I don't care what mama says. Sorry, I've been thinking about Adam Sandler. I don't know why. If you want to be on the show, then there's a link down in the show notes to the list of things that I'm looking to get booked the soonest. Those are going to be your best bet for coming on the show and everything. And so if you see something on there, let me know. If you see something for somebody else that you think they'd be good for, let them know or let me know and then I can reach out to them and it'll be a little bit kind of a roundabout way there, but it still works. Or if you can't commit to a full episode, then you can just give me your thoughts on the game that we're looking at here. This week from over on Discord, Hazel the Help Hub said, hated that one. I was so excited to. I'd just gotten into X-Men, found out there's an NES game, and really couldn't get far, which, to be fair, neither did I. So at least we're on the same page there. And frequent guest Billy said, woof, it really sucked. And over from Blue Sky, the masked game counselor just sent a picture of Peter B. Parker eating a gun, which, while I think is a rather strong reaction, the game is really bad. So don't do that. But also, yeah, the game is bad. If you want to get your thoughts in for the next episode, then we are going to be looking at Lupin the Third, Treasure of the Sorcerer King. If you want to help support the show, then you can be like Ono Lit Class or Dan McMahon and give the show money, because unfortunately it does cost money to run a podcast. Or you can just share the show with other people, with your friends, your family, your favorite teacher at school, whether you're still going to school or not. Actually, that might be kind of nice for them to hear, like, I don't want to think about how many years after you graduated, just telling them about a cool podcast. You should definitely do that. Don't forget that Play Comics is a part of the GonnaGeek.com network, home to such other wonderful shows as Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. I have to stop picking on Anthony, because I know he's not listening anyway, so he won't hear me badgering him about Spider-Gwen. If you want to hear Carrington Martin and I looking at all the media things that we watched as kids and all the lessons we were supposed to learn in there, and then how we're all of a sudden just not supposed to follow those lessons anymore, then you should check out Sugar Spite and Everything is Fine. Guess what? There's a link down in the show notes because I like to be lazy. If you like the music that I'm really talking on top of right now, head on over to backingtrack.gg and check out all the great music over there and maybe find something for your own project. But most of all, just grab a game, grab a stack of comics, and go find yourself a new favorite character.
I suspect so. Or at least interesting. Like, I don't mind a bad game if it's interesting. And this one, the occasional butthole aside, perhaps did not pass that test.
My favorite and least favorite level was Battle Through a Living Starship, because I swore I thought there would be something broody about it.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, this is the most PG-13 way I can say this. I think I died to a giant butthole over and over again.